So it's been around a week or so since Marathon has been officially revealed by Bungie. And I think it's safe to say that the overall internet sentiment regarding Marathon is that of disappointment and of anger and of hate. And just in general, most people that you talk to, at least the vocal people that you're talking to for the most part, are not excited for Marathon whatsoever, or at the very least, have had their expectations slashed as a result of what they have seen at the reveal and the subsequent creator feedback videos that came as the NDA was lifted after the reveal. So basically, overall, the internet has a very negative opinion about Marathon. I've been engaging in discussions and conversations throughout the week, watching a lot of videos from people's perspectives, tuning into streams, listening to people's, their opinions about the game. And that's pretty much the overall sentiment. There's still quite a few people who are maybe cautiously optimistic is the terminology to use. But overall, it's a lot of negative perceptions that are going on. And this is all, by the way, before anyone has had access to the closed alpha. That still has not yet taken place. I think that's supposed to start on April 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. I signed up for it. We'll see if I get access. I have no idea. But this is all before people get in and actually get their hands on the closed alpha that's coming here pretty soon. So I want to talk today about my perspective on that and really kind of why this has happened. Because if you're Bungie, you definitely don't want to have so many people having this negative opinion about your game before they've even gotten the chance to play it. So the question is really, why has that come about? And I'm not going to talk about it from the essence of here's all the list of items that are bad about the game or that people are disappointed about. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to introduce a different conversation that I think is perhaps a little bit more important here, because it might actually open up your eyes to a possibility of positivity after, if we can get through that discussion piece. So here's my thought process. Bungie doesn't want you here. and to an extent that's hyperbolic, but also though it's not. And they've literally said that this game is not for everybody. And I think that statement is kind of doing two things. One, it's ensuring that the player base that they want to have is going to be the player base that they are intending to seek out, right? Their target audience, their target demographic, their avatar. If you know anything about marketing, you're kind of picking up on what I'm saying here. That's kind of part of the result of them saying that. But the other part is that so many people are now taking this as almost an offense, as like, okay, so the game's not for everybody. Well, then it's not for me. That kind of point of view. And that, I think, really encapsulates the biggest problem that Bungie has on their hands with Marathon. I'll give you this real quick. I'm actually very excited for Marathon, and I'll explain why as the video goes on, but I want you to be aware that my perspective of the game is that I'm actually rather positive and excited for it. But let me talk about why other people aren't, and where I think Bungie has genuinely shot themselves in the foot with the lead up to this game's release. I think the biggest problem that we've seen here is with the reveal, Bungie did a very, very poor job revealing the game. If you look at what they showcased during the reveal and their presentation, I think that's really the big crux here. The presentation of what they showed off, it was not strong at all. It was a very strange way of doing things. They opened up the reveal with a very underwhelming gameplay trailer. Anybody who has actually watched that gameplay trailer, you recognize that trailer is not strong. It does not show the hype and the intrigue of the game. It's really mid, to be honest with you. It's mid. And my thought process is that one of the strongest, if not the strongest part of the reveal was actually the 8-minute cinematic that happened at the very end of the reveal. In my opinion, they should have led with that. Lead with that cinematic, because everybody, even if they're not a fan of what the game looks like, every single person who has watched that cinematic is like, bro, that cinematic is a piece of art. Like, that is phenomenal. Why, Bungie, didn't you lead with that? Now, I get, there's that conversation of, do you start strong or end strong? And perhaps they chose the idea of ending strong, but honestly, I think it did them a disservice by doing it that way, because literally people's very first impressions, the millions of people that were watching that reveal, the very first impressions that they had was underwhelming because of that first gameplay trailer. And the craziest thing is that they start the trailer off by saying, from the creators of Halo and Destiny. So it's like, bam, we are like a history, we are a studio of very strong history creating revolutionary products in the shooter space. And then they give you a plate full of mid. You know what I mean? So again, I think Bungie really failed in their presentation to convince players that this game is going to be awesome. Now, what they proceeded to do then thereafter was do a lot of talking. They did some showing, absolutely. They did show gameplay. They did show some various elements of the game that we're going to be able to partake in. But they did a lot of talking, a lot of sitting on the couch, having a chat. And I think that as gamers, we didn't really want that. We wanted to be wowed and, you know, kind of get that awe-inspiring showcase of what this game was really going to be. Why should we purchase this game and play it? They didn't do a very good job of explaining that. Another thing that I found interesting was that, you know, a lot of people talk about what was shown was kind of same old as far as extraction shooters are concerned. You hop into a match, you go, you kill, you loot, you get out. And then you do it over again. And then every 3 months, you got to wipe. And then you start over from scratch. And you keep doing it over and over and over again. But apparently, this game, Marathon, is supposed to be more than that. According to what Bungie has said, there's actually supposed to be more to the game than just that. We got the 8-minute cinematic. They're clearly investing into this game, but they just neglected or chose not to show us really the most interesting parts of Marathon in the reveal, which I can only assume is one of two things. It's either one, a calculated decision to purposefully not, you know, show all of your cards immediately, or two, it's because it's not ready yet. And if it's not ready yet, then my question is, why are they announcing the release date now? Like, nobody was pestering Bungie and be like, hey, why isn't this game released yet? Like, nobody was doing that. So you had free reign for when you wanted to release the game. So I have to then assume that it's one, it was a calculated decision to not show all of the super interesting things, because they said that there's going to be a ranking system. In an extraction shooter, I find that interesting. Like, how are they really going to implement that? What will the rewards be like, right? I feel like that's an interesting element that they could have gone into. The other thing that they've talked about is that there's supposed to be seasonal story elements that are going to be involved in this game. Now, they're not going to have like a campaign or a single player mode or any PvP or PvE based modes. It's just going to be the extraction mode, which has PvP and PvE elements, but they have said that they're going to have seasonal story. They showed us in that 8-minute cinematic that clearly they have, you know, the aura to tell a good story, and Marathon has a lot of really deep and rich lore, which if you've been, you know, kind of paying attention to the very specifics of this game so far, you kind of are picking up on that. But how are they going to tell that story? It's a very interesting story. I would highly recommend going and watching the videos that Hidden Xperia has put together on YouTube talking about the lore of Marathon, because it's really interesting. They have a very good foundation to work with with this game, but they didn't talk about what that story implementation would be like. Why? Why didn't you talk about that? If that is going to be something that's going to set your game apart in the extraction shooter genre, why wouldn't you talk about that? And again, I think this is, once again, where Bungie is failing in their presentation. It seems to me that they have some interesting things that are going to bring to the table for the extraction shooter genre that could revolutionize it, but they're not talking about it, or at least they're not going into depth about it. Another thing is that apparently we've got a fourth map that's coming to the game. Now, before we get to that, real quick, one of the negative sentiments about Marathon is that it's going to be $40 and it's going to launch with 6 characters that you can play as, the AI frames, and then you're going to have 3 maps at launch. And people are saying that that's not enough content. That's a conversation for another time, but you know, that's one of the reasons that people are upset about where we are at with Marathon. So with that being said, there's supposed to be apparently a 4th map that is in development that hasn't been, or you know, honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag, because I saw a video on Twitter the other morning where apparently a creator who had played that map a long time ago talked about it, which is, I don't know if that was okay to do. I haven't gone too deep into it, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know if an NDA was broken with that. I'm not sure. But anyways, she talked about her experience playing this fourth map. And basically the TLDR is that the fourth map is supposed to actually be the Marathon ship itself, which, again, if you've looked into the Marathon lore and you understand the story, that's like really interesting. So it's supposed to actually take place on the Marathon ship. It's supposed to be tight corridors, and it's supposed to kind of be something where like you work to unlock the secrets of a particular room, you unlock that and you move to the next room, and you unlock the secrets of that room, and then you connect to the next one, and you keep doing that, and you get to a point where then you're into this like big boss battle encounter, which kind of has like raid and dungeon sort of elements and mechanics from like Destiny and things like that. Why haven't we talked about that? Bungie, that is what can set your game apart. If you want to convince people that Marathon is going to be this revolutionary game in the extraction shooter market, why wouldn't you lead with the thing that is clearly definitively different? And by the way, you have 10 plus years of experience nailing with Destiny. Like, again, this is sort of that frustrating element here where it's like, I feel like Bungie did themselves a very deep disservice with the reveal of this game. The gameplay that they showed in their trailers was mid. All the gameplay from the creators was significantly better. They showed a much better vibe of what the game is actually going to be like as a player than what Bungie showed off. And you've got all these interesting elements that are clearly there. Bungie has clearly done it, but they haven't talked about it. It's like they led with their worst part. And in today's day and age, that's not exactly a smart move if you want people to buy into a premium release. Like, we've got games like Marvel Rivals that have come out and exploded. It's free to play. You gotta have like a really strong, compelling reason for somebody to spend money. Now, I talked about in my last video that this is a Bungie game, so it's going to sell no matter what, and I still strongly hold to that. It's going to sell. This isn't like a BioWare Anthem situation where you're coming off the heels of Mass Effect Andromeda, and then, they're subsequently, Dragon Age Veilguard. It's not that kind of a situation. Destiny 2, while not in its greatest place, the final shape was fantastic for the game. So Bungie is not like the bottom of the barrel, really shit developer right now. People are going to buy it because it's Bungie. They're going to give it a chance because it's Bungie. But the question is going to be, how long do players stick around? And that is what I think has people concerned, because what they have seen doesn't show them a reason to stick around for the long haul. But I do believe, based off of what we've heard and little snippets of information, that Bungie has that in the game, but they haven't talked about what that's going to be. And that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, right? Because you have marketing cadences where you want to hit certain marketing points throughout a certain duration of time, right? You have sort of a trajectory of where you want things to land leading up to a launch of a product, in this case with Marathon. So I understand that perspective. But when you lead with potentially your worst part, then you're not getting people hooked to then talk about your good parts. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm at with Marathon in this situation. I personally am very excited because I've done some looking into the lore and what I've seen. I'm trying to look past the right now and see what Bungie is cooking for the long term. And having experience with Destiny and Halo in the past, I've seen how Bungie can take a mediocre launch and propel it in the future. But again, they haven't shown that with the marketing for this game so far, so the broader gaming market isn't feeling that way, and it's totally understandable. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts about the situation with Marathon in the comments down below. Are you excited? Do you see it the way that I see it? Are you super underwhelmed? Do you not have any sort of excitement for the game? I'm genuinely curious. Let me know your thoughts. Like this video if you enjoyed the conversation. I'm definitely really excited to talk about more Marathon in the future. This has been a really interesting talking piece. So I'm super excited to make more content about it. Like I said, I'm very excited for the game, so I'm definitely going to keep making content about it. And if you're curious about that, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any uploads here on the channel talking about Marathon and other games just like it. But until then, guys, I'll see you in the next one.